Sahara watercolors. Today has been an ongoing experiment painting the same scene by Matthew Clemons. It's, I believe, somewhere in Texas, and it pictures the Sahara Dust that's been over the lower United States. I've been painting this scene on different toned papers just to see if there was any different results from it. So today we're going to use the cream paper, but so far we've used Stonehenge Aqua, and this was just white paper. And then we utilized the Bockingford blue tinted paper. So there is variation between the two, and there's just variation in painting between the two from one session to another. But I think it's been an interesting experiment, and I'm ready for the last part of it. So, without further ado, we'll set up the Bockingford, and we will start soaking it with water for the wet and wet painting. Now, of course, you can jump ahead to when we actually start the painting. I just wanted to do this portion to kind of do the introduction, as well as show how I handle this paper. The Bockingford is 100% alpha cellulose, and I believe because of my extreme wet and wet painting style, it has, gives me some issues due to the stretching and buckling. So you'll see how I have to wind up handling that. But the fact that the paper is tinted and toned is just really, really fun. Okay, so let's see. We got we're live streaming this, so I'm going to be talking to the people in the live stream. This is filmed on Twitch, and then I'll upload it to YouTube or Patreon, and I have links for that in the Twitch description, and then on the YouTube there's information down below. And we have the beaver in the live chat. Now, like I said, this paper gives me trouble. I'm going to try to show you guys to see how much it buckles already once it starts taking that water on. So with the blue tinted paper, I wound up really going to town trying to stretch this. And usually I just take the clips and I'll push down. But it got to the point where, and I'll probably just wind up doing it here, where I just started doing 3 clips on the one side and having to physically stretch this paper. So this is not something that I usually do at all, and it's quite an inconvenience for me. And as you can tell, and if you watercolor paint, you know that you don't want to really touch your hands all over the paper, because you could have the oils on your skin that will act as a resist in that spot. So let's on that. Then, to add insult to injury, you can see the board that I paint on is saturated with pigment. So if I wet that or touch that, then I'll start getting it on the paper. So it's time for me to start getting new wood. One of the plans is to meet up with my buddy and create wet panel holders, put those together and build them. And whenever we do that, we'll cut some more panels. Anyway, let's jump in. So, tinted paper. The way we've been doing this, we've been using raw sienna in the sky above and below. We've also been playing around with some ultramarine and Prussian blue. I don't use Prussian blue often, but I was watching a video and a gentleman used it, and that got me thinking. You could almost say that this is just almost lightly toned raw sienna to begin with. If I use Prussian blue, and you got to be careful, raw sienna and Prussian blue can pull out a green. Alright. So we're going the same scene. You can see we have that ridge in the paper right there. And I apologize for being just frustrated with that. And I might just say, hey, at this point, just deal with it. That's why, if you want to get into watercolor paper, and people say use the best quality paper you can, go for it. I'm not saying that this paper is poor quality, because Bockingford is like a good brand, but I highly recommend 100% cotton paper if you want a painting wet and wet, or you'll actually have to look into more serious techniques for stretching paper, which at that point you start pulling away from the whole fast and loose painting. This is ultramarine, so you see the Prussian blue, we kind of get that green aspect to it, and then we're going to come up into here with the ultramarine blue. The Prussian blue stands out the most on this paper, it seems like. There's something in this brush that's scraping the paper as well. Okay, this one's kind of be painted a lot looser. Let's see. Can I flatten this? They're talking about selling paintings in the live chat. I have an Etsy account if anybody's ever interested. I upload some paintings to there. I don't do it all the time, but if there's ever anything y'all want, let me know. I donated a print to, I like to donate to charity because it's the right thing to do. I don't have a lot of money, so the best way to do it is donate something, and then other people can put their money in on something that you donated. And I did a painting, and we enlarged it on a canvas, so it was actually just a print, and we put it in a cypress frame, handmade cypress frame, and it auctioned off for the Rotary Club for $500, and that money went to I think that year was for the splash pad at the city park. They also some of the money went to the skate park. You know, whole bunch of stuff like that. So whenever you paint, donating your stuff is always a good thing to do. Obviously, it gets your name out there. Because then, once that auctioned off, I had people contact me through the people that did the charity event for paintings. And I had a few that went through, so that was pretty cool. But it's also just, you know, good to help out, you know, people in your community. All right, I'm going to try to follow a similar process to the previous ones. And I expressed to y'all how I like to do the reflection first, mainly because it's usually wet and wet. This painting, there's really not much to the scene at all. It's very simplistic. But that being said, being so simplistic, doing this wet and wet isn't really necessary first. But if you were going to do a more pronounced scene with a lot more going on in it, I like to do the reflections first so that I can get that wet and wet look. Even though when we've done this one, we've come back over after we did the dry off and did a dry brush effect. You can see the ripples and the ridges in this paper. It's quite a hassle. I've had this happen with Fabriano Studio paper, which is the 25% cotton only. Some people, I don't know if Joe Menza and Matthew Clemons still utilize it, and Lois Davidson, and even David Usher and Stephen Cronin, all those people at one point I think used that paper. I'm not sure if they still do, but that and the Hobby Lobby brand paper is kind of what I cut my teeth on. And for me, those papers either buckle up in this fashion or they pill up, where if you have a wet piece of paper and you rub it, it starts pulling up. Yeah. So in the live chat, Beaver says they wish that they knew how to paint. Like, literally, it's very easy to get started, especially watercolor. It's kind of like, you know, a little bit of money investment, but not as much as compared to oil paints. And it takes day after day after day. It does take a lot of practice with it, but you find your groove, you find what you like. I've been doing watercolors for about 2 years now, and in regards to watercolor, it's just very easy for me to set up. It's a lot of fun. In college, we did oils and all that other stuff, and then I had taken a long hiatus because I just didn't have the time to set up to paint. And then watercolor was just very easy to get going. You don't have the palette right there. I'm getting back into oils. Actually, in the live chat, if you want to see, I'm getting back into still lives with oils. This is one from the other night, just some grapes and some you know, leaves and whatnot. And then here, this is the first still life I painted in about 10 years ago, in 10 years. So I painted that 2 or 3 days ago. So the oil paint's a lot of fun. But oil paint gets very, very pricey. Oh, excuse me. That's embarrassing. On the live stream. We're all human. Y'all didn't hear that. So, just building up this mass, just wet and wet. Take a little bit of light red oxide. I prefer Venetian red, but I put light red oxide out because in the Ron Ranson painting group, where some people will follow along with these paintings, that's usually what they have on their palette. The reason I'm doing that mix is to do this land that's a little bit further back. I pushed it over quite a bit to the left in this painting. And that bluish color recedes back more. I made it a little bit bigger than the other ones, but it's good. It's just been a long day. Yesterday we made it kind of like a Japanese Asian style curry with chicken, carrots, snap peas, just a whole bunch of delicious stuff in it. And she cooked so much of it that we ate off it again today. I can rinse that. Grab some ultramarine blue. So we're still wet and wet. I'll grab some raw sienna, which I should have muted with ultramarine. Yeah. The reason I'm using the raw sienna there is because raw sienna is kind of predominant in this scene to begin with. And it's a little bit warmer, so I'm just trying to get that to pop up some more and give us that picture plane. We're just painting really simply with this. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, we're doing water. Satsuna is in the live chat. Today's been an experiment with 3 different colored papers. This is a tinted cream paper, like a tinted oatmeal, Bockingford brand. And then this is tinted blue. I don't want to touch it to the paper because it's wet. And then this is just the regular white paper. And we're experimenting with the same scene, which was taken by my friend Matthew Clemons. And it's of the Sahara dust that's affecting the atmosphere in the southwest United States. So what I'm going to do is dry this off. I'm going to kind of add a little bit more detail in here, and then I'm going to do a wash of raw sienna over it. And the whole point is just to compare these 3 papers. And I've been dealing with this buckling paper all day, which the tint has some fun aspects to it, but constantly sitting here and restretching it is a hassle. Okay, so once I do that, I'm going to dry with the blow dryer, so watch your ears if you have headphones on. And here we go. Okay, so we're dried off. Number 4 rigger. We're just going to kind of play around in here, just a little bit of detail. We're kind of just shortcutting our greens. If you ever get something muddy on the palette, just wipe it off with a paper towel. At first I was very timid with my palette, and now it's just whenever you need to do anything on it, just start messing around with it. Okay, so greens, a few easy ways to mix them, or you could have a pre-mixed one. I've been playing with the lemon yellow, and you could do ultramarine. You could do lemon yellow and Payne's gray for a darker green, lemon yellow or yellow ochre and Payne's Gray for another green. So there's a few different greens you could get out of there. If you have phthalo blue on your palette, you can play around with that as well. I have a lot of paint on here from just mixing and showing that real quick. I have one palette that I'm going to go back to probably in the next day or two. That's a sap green Venetian red combination, and it gives really interesting tonalist painting attributes to it. It's just way too much pigment and water. You could bring these colors down into this reflection, which I haven't so much been doing today. I've just been kind of just putting in darks. However, whenever you're doing reflections, you really don't want to paint the same thing that you're doing above as you are below. You can get just the tonal ideas of it. For instance, I'm trying to get a darkening in this region. I have too much paint on there. Let me just texturize it and lift it up. What I wanted to do is kind of darken in here, and then just have a darkened reflection down below. And the reason you don't want to have exactly what you have above as you do below is then it winds up creating two images in one painting, and it splits the painting. Some people are very good at doing like the same exact thing above and below, but think about that whenever you see a painting like that. I'm just painting this one kind of fast. I apologize. Yeah, sorry about your ears with the blow dryer. It's part of the tools of the trade. I was reading a British painter who was out and about painting, and he was in his car, and he would just use the heater, the air vent, to dry off his paintings while he was painting from his car. I don't know if I'd be able to paint sitting in a car. First of all, I think people would be like, what is that person doing? Second, it would just be so cramped. I've been getting fluffy during the whole COVID thing. So we're kind of just playing around. I'm just using the hake as a drier aspect to dry brush. I almost wish they assembly lined the experiments today, just because there is a lot of just personal variation, happening from one to the next for this experiment. But if anything, for somebody that watches these, I hope that you can see the differences in the paper. I'm just lifting this up, but I want to wind up taking white gouache to accentuate those reflections. We might have to do something a little bit more here. We're almost done though. We're going to do a dry off and then we'll do the wash with the gouache. The wash with the raw sienna. Lower that line down. We could feed in some tones down there. Let's see how we're looking. Okay. Yeah, we didn't scrape out any trees. Let's do that just so you can see how this paper scrapes. So you take the edge of a card. You can take the sharp edge or the pre-round edge, and you can get the structure of tree branches. Okay, let me do a dry off. So if you have headphones on, watch your ears. Okay, so we're pretty dry. Now this is the key point in this experiment. We were comparing the different tone papers and essentially just comparing the different brands, 100% cotton versus alpha cellulose. But we're also going to do a wash of raw sienna over this, and that's to get that Sahara Dust feel. It's also kind of a tonalist approach. And if you watch the channel, you know how much I just blab on about tonalism. Okay, oh, we got people in the live chat. Oh, a whole bunch of people came in. Oh, somebody rated. Oh, thank you. I appreciate you all coming in. Thank you. For those of you all in the live chat that just came in, we've been doing an experiment all day where we took 3 different brands of paper. And we're looking at this one scene, which is from Texas, of the Sahara Dust. We did it with the Stonehenge Aqua, which is a white paper. Then we did it with the Bockingford Blue Tinted. And now we're doing it with Bockingford Oatmeal Tinted. And it's pretty simple composition. And we're doing this to compare them and then take a wash of raw sienna over this whole thing to get that Sahara Dust feel. So it changes the painting quite a bit. It's like glazing in oil painting, which is a beautiful effect. But unfortunately, unlike glazing in oil painting, you can't really lift up what you're putting down here. If I was glazing on an oil painting, I'd be able to wipe back anything I added if I didn't like it and lift out highlights. And I think I have a video or two showing that, but it's something I'll do more of down the line. So this is a glaze of raw sienna. You can leave that sky sun like that. You can lift out the sun some, whatever amount you want to achieve for that haziness. If you're using a staining pigment, you just want to be careful because it's not as easy to lift out. Here we're pulling up that sun reflection, and because it's so pronounced in the photo, we're taking a gouache, which I've been having to reconstitute. I could just pour it out. And then add a little bit of lemon yellow to this. And we could kind of just pop it in. There's a lot of thought about white gouache, white paint, and watercolor. Some people love it, some people hate it, some people are indifferent, obviously. It has its uses. Look at the uses of it and decide for yourself. The tradition of not using the white watercolor comes from the 1800s, from the Victorians, when there was a lot of people that were art critics and trying to justify different things. Thank you. I really appreciate all your comments in the live chat. Let's dry this off and see how it looks. If you have headphones on, watch your ears, okay? Okay, in a second it'll be dry and we'll compare it to our two other results from today. Okay, we should be dry enough. As you can see, I have this thing clamped down to death. That's because this paper, the Bockingford, really buckles whenever you use an intense wet method. And you could play around with rolling it in your hands. You could put weight on top of it. You could even take an iron to the back of it. I believe. I haven't tried that one yet. But that is the drawback, as it's quite cumbersome during painting. So let's lay them out side by side, and hopefully the camera will pick up the difference and you'll be able to see the changes. Tinted blue white paper, the ultramarine, and the Prussian blue definitely made more of a statement in this one. Prussian blue with that yellow would give you more of a green. Ultramarine kind of gives you that gray. This one I did a double wash of raw sienna over it, as I had made a mistake up in here. But I think that mistake gave a really cool halo. So what had happened was I was trying to circulate out that, and when you add too much water into an already water area, you're going to get cauliflower effect. And then this was just the first painting of the day. Let's look at the reflection. So reflection, I utilized white gouache with lemon yellow mixed into it. This one came out the best. It just popped out the most. The first one, I struggled. I wanted to first use some color told buff titanium, Titan buff, which I think is like a untreated white titanium, but it just wasn't working out for me. And I had mixed some colors and it just didn't work. So that was kind of a floundering taking place. And here it worked out really well. And I think the concept of darkening an area alongside the light helped make it pop more. Where we might have been a little too light here and we didn't get the pop expected. Let's look at the background. Right back in here. This shows a prime example of the Prussian blue on that raw sienna or the oatmeal paper. You kind of get that green color. I used just a purple mix, ultramarine blue, and a light red oxide to recede that, and I threw in some, I think, burnt sienna here. I'm not really too concerned about these areas. There's some variation. If you are like demonstrating or showing to people that are local, they're going to look for symbols in the background that are local. Here, there's kind of the more flat background. Here it looks a little bit more mountainous. So, you know, depending on what region you're in and how you paint, some people will look for those things. There goes my blow dryer. Last thing to look at is the trees, the kind of closer landmass. Can I show these in a fashion that work? I guess we'll have to go like this. I was kind of just throwing it together, not worrying too much about it. Just compositionally, you want to see where that is and how it lines up, obviously. But you also want to see how it interacts with this shape here. I don't want a sharp peak or something coming up straight here, as it's going to create too much of an unnatural line taking place. So with this landmass, that was kind of the only thing I was really looking at. Also kind of an S-shaped composition here, just a little coming out and whatnot. I blocked it in and then I just used the rigger on the side just for some texture. Same thing here. Just watch how it lines up and interacts. And we have that S-shaped composition. Here, I may have actually made that mistake. We have that come up. Yeah, it's not too jutting out, so I can get away with it, but it does look pretty cool. And we have the S-shaped composition again, and that just gives the illusion of depth, as if there's something more to explore behind that background. So, here I also demonstrated some scraping on this paper. The Bockingford can handle a little bit of scraping, but you just have to be careful with it. We scraped and then did a wash, so it just gives that faint hint of that effect. So, that was today's experiment. I hope you all enjoyed. Of course, please like, subscribe, follow. I'm going to upload these to YouTube. I think in the About Me section it has the YouTube link or the name Andrew Broussard Watercolors. In fact, I have to sign this one. And on YouTube, I'd appreciate, if you guys like, subscribe, follow. And if you guys ever have any questions or anything you want me to paint or draw or talk about, let me know and I'll give it a try. Can't promise it would come out good, but as of right now, I'm probably going to go back onto a still life kick for a while. I think I showed you guys that earlier. So, let me know if you all have any questions or anything. But thank you everybody for dropping by. Really appreciate your support. Have a great day.